Welcome back to Talking to Teachers, presented by the CBA Digital Network. My name is Nicholas Harari, and I'm here with CBA's strength coach, gym teacher, and AP Psych teacher, Coach Bear. How are you doing?
Doing great this morning.
Yeah, pleasure to have you. First question I want to ask you is, what's your origin story, how you got started here at CBA?
Yeah, so when I was 22 years old, I was a year out of college. My girlfriend at the time, wife now, she's an RBC grad. We met at the University of Dayton, and I was working in Ohio and California at the time, and I put up a Google search alert so that anytime a job goes up for what I do as a strength coach in Ohio or in New Jersey, because that's where she's from, I would get an email about it. And that summer, I got like a lot of different applications, a lot of different interviews and things like that, and nothing really stuck. And I happened to be visiting her on the way back to Ohio from California when I got an email that said, opening for first ever strength and conditioning coach at Christian Brothers Academy. And she said I couldn't work here because, obviously there's a big rivalry there between RBC and CBA. But I put in the application, and, couldn't be luckier to have a job in my girlfriend, now wife's hometown. Just
That's
down the
awesome.
Road. Too lucky.
Yeah, so you're originally from Ohio.
Yeah, Cincinnati, halfway between Cincinnati and Dayton.
Wow. And of course, segueing off of that, would you want to talk about, of course, what you're involved in inside of CBA, outside of teaching?
Outside of teaching, yeah. So obviously I got brought on originally as CBA's first ever strength and conditioning coach. And so before school most days and after school pretty much every single day, we're in that weight room. We've got 6 racks, 6 platforms. So I've got 12 barbells now. I can get like 36 kids training all at one time. When we started this whole program, actually, when I interviewed for the job, I told Mr. Fales and Mr. Chervelati, who was the AD at the time, I said, my vision for this program was to be as inclusive as possible. So, in one rack we'll have a shot putter that's going to go D1 next year, and in the next rack we'll have a kid who's maybe never lifted before in his life, and maybe he never even wants to try out for a sport, and that's just fine. Everybody gets to train. It's great.
Yeah, no, I've seen people, like when I'm on the rack, because I'm in there a lot, when I'm on the rack, I could see someone next to me, like Matt Daper, who's been deadlifting like over 500 pounds. You could see a freshman, just getting in there, starting to build some muscle.
Yeah, it's really cool too, because like a lot of the guys who are the best in the gym are really excited to help out the guys who are just there for the first time.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me recently if I ever let the older guys coach up the younger guys, and my answer was like, I love that, but it's actually not for the reason you think. It's because the older kid benefits more from that interaction. Like, I'm going to be way more efficient than any of our seniors at teaching the lifts, but the senior benefits from teaching the freshman more than the freshman benefits from that interaction. It's pretty cool to see.
That's awesome. And you want to talk a little bit about the CBA Barbell Club with powerlifting and Olympic weightlifting?
Yeah, we just started that this year. We've been competing in Olympic weightlifting way back when. My first weightlifting competitors were all wrestlers. These guys were Christian Canatini and Dylan Van Sickle way back in the day. I think it's kind of funny, wrestling and weightlifting go so well.
Dylan actually was back a couple weeks ago.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. He was back. It was awesome.
Yeah, he used to compete when he was in high school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. But so we've been doing this for a long time, but I never wanted to form a club because I didn't want other coaches to be concerned about their kid quitting their sport for weightlifting, and that's still not the goal. Like, I want guys to do it in their off season, let this be the product of good training. But then I started looking at national meets, and I said, wow, we have guys that could really place at nationals. We could win this as a team, and the only way to win as a team is to have the official club. So this year I talked to Mr. Maz, and we said, let's start these clubs. We started a USA Weightlifting Club. We started a USA Powerlifting Club. For those who don't know, weightlifting is the snatch and the clean and jerk. It's all about moving the most weight from the floor to overhead. And powerlifting is the other one that you always think about, which is squat, bench, and deadlift. That's what more people are interested in. So it's kind of interesting. If you get into weightlifting, it's harder to make it to nationals, but when you get there, there's less people there. Powerlifting is a little easier to make it to nationals, but there's a ton of people to get there. So big fish, small pond.
And of course I compete. I took the Olympic weightlifting route, and I had a little bit of a boost coming in because my mom, of course, CrossFitter, so I was open to that kind of stuff. But I put in some work and was able to compete this past weekend. We had a couple guys this past weekend compete at Freehold, and great experience, able to get to qualify for nationals, maybe compete at nationals. So
Yeah,
That's
no,
awesome.
you guys did awesome.
Yeah.
It was a close one. You know, like those
Oh, yeah.
qualifiers are hard to hit.
Yeah.
But you know, we had a plan. We went in, and you crushed it. It was fantastic.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and I think my favorite part was just the emotion after the first lift. I hit the snatch, and just because I didn't think I was going to get it up, and it went up so easy. I was like, oh my god.
That's the thing, is sometimes the best lifts of your life actually feel the easiest, and the reason is because you did everything perfectly.
Yeah.
If you hadn't done it perfectly, you would have just missed. And so, like, some of my biggest PRs, I look at them and the way they felt, and I'm just like, wow, feels like you could go 10 more pounds. What you don't realize is if you had gone 10 more pounds, it wouldn't have been perfect, and then you would have missed it.
Exactly.
So people who watch a lot of powerlifting, when they see weightlifting, they always look at the lifts and go, this guy could go heavier. It's like, no, he just did everything perfectly, and that's the hard part.
Everything is so precise with technique.
Yeah,
it's one specific move or a couple specific moves that you just have to nail down, positioning.
Yeah, and if you're off by even like a millimeter, you feel that.
Oh yeah, it affects the lift for sure. Yeah, definitely. And then of course, what do you do outside of school? Do you have any hobbies or family activities?
Yeah, so most of my free time is spent either training my dogs. I love my dogs, or actually I play a ton of live music. Me and Mr. Lopez play out a lot. Yeah, so a lot of like musical theater, a couple of different bands.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, like it's kind of funny. There's a pretty big diversity in what I do both in and out of school.
Yeah, that's like weightlifting and.
There's actually a pretty big crossover between like music and athletics. It's interesting. We actually use this is the AP Psych part, but we use the same part of our brain for spatial reasoning as for musical reasoning. So if you were to put somebody in an fMRI and watch them think about music or watch them think about sports, it's actually the same parts of the brain lighting up. And so you see a lot of people that can do both really, really well because they're just really strong in spatial reasoning.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, it's kind of funny. We actually have a lot of our 70% of our students are athletes, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of distributes to everything. So that means that probably roughly 70% of our musicians here are athletes as well. So Mr. Lopez and I were actually just talking recently about getting the musicians to train in the weight room the same as any other team, like get a session where it's like, hey, this is all the musicians today.
Yeah, I mean, considering I'm an athlete, I mean, I've never been extremely musically inclined, but I learned to play the piano, and it wasn't that I was able to catch on pretty fast.
Piano's a great place to start because it's such a literal instrument. It's all laid out before you. All the notes are right there and they're evenly spaced.
Yeah. What do you do in the band? Do you sing or?
For the most part, it's bass and guitars. I grew up playing a lot of like trombone and tuba, but when I got to college, I didn't think anyone wanted to hear that anymore. So I switched to bass and guitar. But it's whatever is needed. Just I enjoy playing.
That's awesome. Yeah, my sister actually is in a band. She does School of Rock.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she's one of the singers. They're going to Nashville actually to perform.
There's a lot of great programs around Monmouth County.
Yeah.
The opportunities for teenagers to play live music in Monmouth County is insane. Like you can play like storied venues like the Stone Pony and like as a kid. Like that's crazy to see.
Yeah, I think she played at the Starland Ballroom.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So and it was
it's a huge venue.
It's huge. I'm like, oh my. But,
that's too cool.
It's awesome. Yeah, that's a really good thing to get. I think that's awesome.
I mean, Mr. Lopez. I don't know if you guys have had Mr. Lopez.
For music appreciation.
Yeah, he's doing amazing things with that program just about the contemporary side.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And going back to school, what would you say over the years that you have been here? What's been your most memorable moment or favorite memory?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I would have to think about that for a while. A lot of it has been, obviously the big competitions. My first year here, talk about, a strong start. The hockey team beat, I think it was Del Barton in the state final at the Prudential Center in triple overtime, right? And it's me and Mr. Sherivalati just getting absolutely just pressed against the glass by the student body as Mr. Spidell climbs over top of us like we're zombies, blowing a whistle that we didn't even know he had. And then we're all driving back on the bus. We didn't get back till 1 a.m. And you know me, I was back here at 7 a.m. to train another team the next morning. I shouldn't have done any of that. But that's like a huge start for me. But beyond that, a lot of it is much smaller things, little student interactions. It's Teacher Appreciation Week, I think, this week. And so a lot of times around this time, you'll get like a letter from a kid. And sometimes it's not even a kid that you realize you had an impact on. Sometimes it's a kid that, some kids like you've got a good rapport. But sometimes you don't even know. I'll get letters from a kid and not even realize the ways that I had impacted their life in and out of school. And so a lot of the things that, really keep you going as a teacher and a coach are those little letters. So, shout out to all the students out there. If there's a teacher in your life that made an impact, write them a letter. Even something short and sweet makes a huge difference.
Oh, I'm sure that's I mean, that's great. And you said it's this week.
I think it is, yeah, because I think there's a faculty breakfast right now.
Oh, okay. All right. And then last question I have for you. I usually end off every podcast this way. If you could give any advice to faculty and students, what would that be?
Yeah. This might sound a little too Lasallian, I guess, but I'm the oldest of 4 brothers. I have 3 younger brothers, and they're all like 2 years apart, and I'm like, I don't know, 6 years older than them or something like that. And so like I'm always jealous of their relationship because they're much closer than I am to them. I'm almost like their uncle. But the reason I bring all that up is because I find that the best relationships I have with students are those brotherly relationships where it's not like, look, we're not peers per se, but we can have a friendly interaction in the sense that like I'm guiding you, I'm leading you, but also I'm taking into consideration like, what are your concerns? What are your other expectations? And just kind of caring about the other person. The reason I bring all that up is I see some teachers get frustrated, some coaches get frustrated with their students, and I think if you start first with what does this student want, what does this student need, and then build towards a happy place in between, like that's always going to go a lot better than just saying, here are my expectations and everybody has to fit into this box.
No, yeah,
if you just kind of approach it more that way, everyone's happier. Like you'll be happier as a teacher, they'll be happier as students.
Oh, no, yeah. And you have to look at, where they're coming from, of course.
Yeah.
And then being able to, in a way, sympathize with them and help them take the steps towards whatever goal they're trying to reach.
That comes back to the coaching especially as well. Like I'm as far from dogmatic as I could possibly be. If a student comes to me and they say, this is my goal, great, we're going to work towards that. If I try to get every single kid to do powerlifting or weightlifting, like most kids would be miserable.
Exactly.
So like if a kid comes to me and said, that's what I want to do, great, we're going to do that. But if a kid comes to me and says, all I care about is my vertical jump, awesome. That's going to be very sport specific most of the time.
Yeah, no, I just think it's important, especially in there. I mean, as I was saying earlier, the variety in the weight room, I feel like the weight room is a place that just everybody can come together like as just a community, whether you're doing curls with 10 pounds or you're over clean and jerking 225. It's like everybody it's a community.
I'm glad to hear you say that because that's been my vision for that's been my vision for 10 years now. It's like even more than just the training, it's just like have it be an inviting place to hang out, especially in the spring. Sometimes guys who haven't been in start to come in, they realize like this is not a threatening environment. And I'll have kids that come in, they don't even, sometimes it gets on my nerves a little bit. It's like, you should be training more, you should be training harder. And then I think to myself, like, they're just happy to be here just to hang out.
Yeah.
Like, what a healthy environment that is, to have a safe place to go after school, just to be with your friends, even if you don't really feel like training, just to hang out, put some music on, have a blast.
Yeah, I mean, the first step of the battle is actually getting there.
Yeah, there's a joke that somebody said one time. They say, just go to the gym, because it's like if you hang out in barbershops a lot, chances are you're going to get a cut, right? Yeah, and the joke is like, you just hang out in the weight room, chances are you're good at lift weights.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
Well, overall, pleasure to have you today. Very fun podcast.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, of course. And pleasure to have you, and that is all for now. We will see you next time.